So it's another hot summer day here in Florida. We had a real field temperature high of 101 today. So just the perfect thing to set the mood off to get the day started working on vehicles. So anyways, let me get you guys in here and show you what I already started getting apart on the truck, and we'll take from there.
You can see the riding on the pavement. Young kids, they're growing up in basements.
So I just got a couple things taken apart to prep for pulling the engine. So one thing I did is I popped out the drive shaft, the U-joint for it. There is a tool that you can use that is like a plug that goes in the spline of the tail housing of the transmission so that whenever you go to lift it out, the fluid doesn't pour out. But I don't have one, so I just use the yoke. I'm gonna keep it in there. So that's one thing that I got out. Another thing that I prepped is, you see down here, there's a bracket that goes on the frame and the transmission for the shifter. All that was 2 bolts right here and here. Got those off. And then big thing that you might notice is I pulled off the exhaust manifolds. That was a trip. Not getting those off, but trying to get the motor mounts out. I was just kind of spotted a little bit before I started the video. And especially with these AC trucks, whenever you have the exhaust, you have the exhaust manifold comes down behind the motor mount, and then I had bracketry and the fuel pump and everything that were sitting in the front. So trying to get that bolt out for the motor mount, not fun. So if you're going to be doing this, I recommend that you also pull the exhaust manifolds off. So, all right, besides that, what I have to do is take off, if you can see them there, 2 bolts for the transmission mount. Need to get those off. And then on the inside where you see my ratchet, you have a bolt that goes, it's either a bolt or a nut, I'm not 100%. Some are a nut, some are bolts. But it goes underneath on that bracket. You gotta get that pulled off. And then same thing on here. One other thing I did take apart, if you notice the puddle, is I undid the transmission lines that go up to the cooler. So that was 2 1/2-inch nuts for that, to pop those 2 out. So obviously there'll be a little bit of fluid in there, but it shouldn't be too bad. Whenever I'm lifting it up, the transmission and the engine, it'll probably leak out a little bit, but no big deal on that. So let me go ahead and pop out those 2 motor mount bolts, and I'll, get this thing pulled out. Alrighty, so as you saw, we got the engine and transmission pulled out of the frame. Went very smooth. Most of the hard work is in the prep work. So that's just removing the motor mounts, transmission mounts, getting the exhaust out of your way to do so, and anything else that's still connected to the frame or anything else. Like I did also have to undo the power steering lines for the pump, which is no big deal for that. I cut them because I need to replace them, but depending on what you're doing, you can decide what the best option is for that. So the next steps that we need to do is undo the transmission, split the transmission from the engine. And to do that, we need to get underneath. We're gonna remove the inspection cover and get to the access to the bolts that connect the torque converter to the flywheel. So I'm gonna get you guys in closer so you can get a better look at that as I do it, and we'll take it from there. So if you look in here, you could see with the inspection cover off, you could see one of the bolts that go into the flywheel that we need to take off. So I think that there's 4 of those. Might be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure it's 4. So and I just wanted to show you guys that real quick. I'm gonna get those taken off, and then we'll be ready to lower it down and then undo the bolts bolting it to the block. All right, so as you see, I got the engine and the transmission separated. I was wrong. It's only 3 bolts that hold the torque converter to the flywheel here. So got those 3 undone and undid the bolts, bolting the bell housing to the block, and it came apart real easy. So I also managed to make quite the mess on my shop floor whenever I was removing it and I lowered down the engine. All the remaining coolant that was in the water pump poured out. So I get to clean that up now. So I'm gonna go ahead, get this on the engine stand, and I'll go over a couple things. All right guys, so we got the engine on the engine stand. A few cool things about this engine that I'd like to talk to you about are that it's an O&O block, which I just found out the other day looking at the casting. And if you don't know, O&O blocks used to be very sought after. As the story goes, they have a higher nickel content in the casting, which supposedly makes the blocks bigger. Some people dispute that, some people swear by it. I'm just happy to have it. So that's one really cool thing. So O&O blocks are both, they came in both 2-bolt and 4-bolt, but typically the O&O blocks that came in trucks, which I verified from the identification number that this is the original engine for this truck. If you look at the identification number, which is above the water pump, there's a flat spot. I can show you that here in a minute. You want to look at the last numbers and letters, and they're an identifier, which will tell you what they came in. So if the first number, or first letter rather, starts with a T, it means it came in a truck, which this does. It's a TDJ, if I'm not mistaken. And so the truck blocks typically were 4 bolts. And something else that I heard that I don't know if it's true or not, you guys put in the comments if I'm full of it or not, is that typically another way that you can tell if you have a 4-bolt block is it will have an 1/8" plug above the water pump. It's on a slight little cant coming out of it, and I guess that had something to do with pre-lubrication whenever they're assembling the engine at the factory. Again, don't know if that's factual information or not. We're not really going to know 100% until we get the engine pan taken off this, the oil pan taken off this motor, and then we can inspect it, and that will be the obviously for sure thing. So hopefully, look forward to that in a future video where I'll kind of dive into this engine a little bit. We'll figure out what heads we have on it, if they're 198s or 202s. I'm sure that it's probably going to be 198s, but you never know. I thought it was a 2-bolt, which I guess it still could be. So, yeah, so in a future episode, we'll open this up and find out some more information on it. Let me know what you guys would like to see as far as this motor or something else. I still want to keep it probably a 350 or tossing around putting a 400 crank in it and making it a 383 stroker. But I definitely want to keep it a small block Chevy. I know everybody wants to LS swap everything, and they are great swaps, but I want to, I guess it's different now. I want to keep the small block Chevy in it for, just because I have one, it's going to be a little bit more cost effective, and I guess different from the trend that everybody else is doing nowadays. So, but I'm going back and forth on if I'm going to rebuild this one and tune this guy up, or possibly cut down on the duration that this build is, maybe even save some cost and buy something that's already built. I'm going back and forth on that. If this is a 4-bolt and being an 010 casting, I'm kind of leaning more towards now going with this guy. But again, that's up in the air. I might just get this gone through by somebody just in one shot. So we'll see how it goes. But I'll show you guys the casting numbers where you can find that, as well as the identification numbers real quick. And yeah. All right, so if you could see, I know it's a little bit hard, but you can see the flat machine spot on the front of this block. That's the engine identification number. So I was right, the last three are TDJ. What you want to look at that tells you a lot are the last three numbers and the last three letters. So on this, it's 0417 TDJ. Before that, there are some other numbers that it's be like a partial VIN and give you some more information on the truck. Another thing to mention or show you guys here is this is that plug that I was talking about, that I don't know if that's true or not, that this is indicative of a 4-bolt main motor or not, but that's just something else to look at. I guess we will be the verifiers on that, if this is or not. And then on the back here, you'll be able to see the casting. So it's GM 3970010. So that's a 010 block. You go off the last three numbers on this casting. That's going to do it for this episode of Barn Built Fabrications. We got the engine and trans pulled out of the truck, and in the next episode we're going to be getting the chassis stripped down and prepped for sandblasting. So definitely be on the lookout for that video. And if you'd like to follow along with the whole build series, consider subscribing to the channel. And thank you to each and every one of you guys who has been following along and watching the videos. And if you're new to the channel, consider going and looking back at some of the older videos in the playlist of the C10 build from the start. And you guys get out there, get your own projects, start working on them. It doesn't have to be anything big. Get out there, piss off the neighbor, disappoint your mom, and until next time, keep on keeping on.
You can see the writing on the pavement. Young kids, they're growing up in basements. Online, a whole new generation. I'ma make mine, so you better go take it. Always, they need a new replacement. Decentralized, can't contain it. We're changing lives, yeah, upgrading. Call it suicide of the older generation. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah.